Hello, my name is Tony Minotti. I am an associate professor at Osaka Shoin Women's University in Japan. I work for the Department of English as an international language in the Faculty of Liberal Arts. Today, I would like to talk about the flipped classroom approach. Introduction. As ever younger students are becoming technologically savvy and with educational institutions introducing digital platforms in the classroom to students at a younger age, the concept of mobile learning has become mainstream. Research by authors such as Wells, DeLange, and Fieger in 2008 have argued that technological advancements have significantly changed the way teachers teach and students learn. With these advancements, the concept of the flipped classroom have become popular. In the flipped classroom, as defined by Bergman and Sams in 2012, what was traditionally done in the classroom is now being done at home prior to the lesson. This way, students prepare for the lesson at home as homework and use the actual class time as practice. The idea of flipping a classroom is not new. In the past, teachers would give students pre-tasks or assignments to do at home prior to the start of the class, so that more class time could be allocated to discussion, group work, and addressing students' individual needs. Because of this, authors such as Springer believe that students are taking responsibility for their learning and that the new technologies that are available help students with their needs, whatever or wherever they are. This presentation will look at how the flipped classroom works, show samples of how to implement the concept in a lesson, and identify the advantages and disadvantages of using this concept. I hope you enjoy my presentation. How it works. In the past, teachers would give students pre-tasks to take home to prepare for the upcoming lesson. This could include reading ahead in a story, or using specific formulas on a math assignment so that the more class time could be allocated to discussion, group work, and or solving related problems based on the work given to the students prior to the class. However, with new technology, new forms of communication have been added to the flipped classroom. Teachers are able to create videos or tailor a lesson to the mobile world that we live in. These new techniques help engage students and pique their interest in the language learning process. In the spring of 2020, lessons at Osaka Shoin Women's University were put online due to the COVID-19 pandemic. At the beginning of the semester, teachers are given the option of using the university's Learning Management System, or LMS, or a video conferencing application to teach their lessons. The LMS approach consisted of the teacher pre-recording video lectures and uploading them to the university servers. The video conferencing approach consisted of the teacher teaching in live time via the internet. Students quickly complained about both options. The problem with the LMS approach was that there was a delay in feedback from the teacher. In traditional classrooms, students can get immediate help from the teacher when needed. When using a flipped classroom, this is not possible. There are some solutions to help ease students' concerns. A teacher could create online discussion boards or blog posts, or ask the students to write down any questions or concerns they have about the video lecture that they watched at home. The problem with the video conferencing approach was that many students had technical issues during the lesson, resulting in the loss of valuable class time. The solution was the implementation of the flipped classroom approach, where students were given pre-recorded assignments before class, and in the first several minutes of the video conferencing lesson, students were able to ask questions or get clarification about their pre-tasks. Kellogg in 2009 believed that including examples in the lectures and creating modules that students could enter data into that would be automatically corrected would help students test their own understanding of the material and lower concerns about student learning. This would give the teachers more time to help their students as opposed to lecturing. Examples of how to implement it. One example of how to implement a flipped classroom would start by giving students an option between text or video-based instructions. This not only shows the flexibility of the use of this technique, but it also shows that the approach can meet the needs of different types of students. The materials can be created in such ways that the students are engaged and interested in learning. At Osaka Shoin University, many courses were project-focused. Students were assigned groups, and each member of the group was given specific tasks to complete prior to the lesson. The video conferencing lesson activities depended on having each person in the group complete their assigned role prior to the beginning of the class. Pre-tasks consisted of pre-reading, problem-solving, and research. When the groups entered the online classroom, they would then share their results with the whole group. Once online, the teacher was able to put all the members of one group into their own classroom or breakout room. This gave the students more time to engage with their learning concepts and talk to their fellow students. It also gave the teacher more time to talk to the groups one-on-one, as opposed to lecturing the whole class. This was a byproduct of allowing the students the responsibility of preparing and engaging with their peers in the virtual classroom. By using the flipped classroom approach, teachers could create an environment that allowed the students to take responsibility for their work. Also, teachers were able to answer questions that individuals or groups had by walking around, visiting each breakout room. It should be noted that at the end of each project, students were given questionnaires to evaluate the process of their learning. Questions were not specific to the flipped classroom approach, but the feedback was positive. Advantages of using the flipped classroom approach. All students have their own personal learning styles. Strayer in 2007 concluded that using a flipped classroom helps students to better utilize their own learning style in the learning process. He argued that students become more aware of their own learning process compared to students in a traditional classroom. The flipped classroom also changes the dynamic of responsibility. In a traditional classroom, the teacher usually leads and takes responsibility for what occurs in the class. This new dynamic, the students must take more responsibility, such as by viewing a lecture and preparing for a lesson. Strayer observed that when flipped lessons were used, based on the students' learning style, the students appeared to be more successful than the students in a traditional classroom. At Osaka, with Shoin University, the goal of the flipped classroom was to give students more responsibility over their learning. Students were asked to do pre-tasks not only to prepare for the lesson, but to ensure that they were a functioning part of the group. If students did not do their pre-assignments prior to the lesson, the other members of the group would not be able to complete the project on time and would either get a lower grade or fail the project. Another advantage of using the flipped classroom is the students have access to materials at all times. Classes do not have to be disrupted even when teachers or students are absent because the class materials are accessible at all times. For this reason, the courses progress as scheduled without any delays. This was true for the students. All lessons were saved on either the university server or a cloud service, so students were able to access the materials whenever and as often as they liked. The teachers had the option of either uploading a video to the school's LMS or emailing a link to a YouTube video that they had created. Teachers were also able to send information via other social media sites, as long as their students were able to access the information whenever they liked. Disadvantages of using the flipped classroom approach. A disadvantage that was noticed while using the flipped classroom with this approach was that there were students who did the work of others as well as their own, so their grade would not suffer. The acceptability of this practice is common in Japan based on this culture's collective orientation, but it makes it more difficult for the teacher to actually evaluate the student's work. Another disadvantage of the use of the flipped classroom was in the workload of the teacher. The teachers were expected to create, edit, and upload all the materials in their free time. The common complaint from the teachers was that their workload was almost doubled each week without extra pay or extra time off. Conclusion. The flipped classroom approach has increased in popularity with the arrival of the COVID-19 pandemic and has proved to be an effective way to teach students online. The fundamental principles of the approach to give students pre-tasks prior to the lesson so that the teacher has more time for individual help has not changed over the years. However, the method of delivery has changed. With the advancement of technologies, educators have multiple ways of creating information and delivering it to their students. A flipped classroom approach can be implemented by having students get into groups and assigning each person in the group a predetermined task prior to the class. Once in the classroom, the group members can collaborate and complete the assignment as a group. By using the flipped classroom approach, the teacher spends less time lecturing and more time helping the groups, increasing the time teacher and students interact. A great advantage of the flipped classroom approach is that it gives students more responsibility in the learning process. The students must be accountable for their work, or the other members of the group will fail. Thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoyed my presentation.